We've always seen an incredible amount of hypocrisy from the anti-abortion crowd.
I'd be foolish in saying there has been no hypocrisy which has come from those against abortion, but I wonder if he is just as critical of the massive hypocrisy on the pro-choice side. For example, these are the same people who claim they are fighting for women today and fighting to preserve rights for women in the future, but have no problem with mothers being able to legally kill their little girls in the womb, thus will never see a future as women. These are the same people who claim to be for a woman so-called exercising a right over her body, but when she wants to do that same thing at 8 months of pregnancy, then they'll talk about how illegal that is and how she should only have access to that choice if there is a medical emergency. These are the same people who claim to be about so-called choice, yet when a private company wants to exercise their right to their choice to cover whatever services they wish to their employees, like in the Hobby Lobby case in late 2014, then they all of a sudden have a problem, including this guy.
But one story in particular really hammered this home recently. A girl named Maddie Runkles just graduated from Heritage Academy, a Christian school in Maryland. She was a good student by any measure, but this was a Christian school. So it's not enough that you get good grades and do extracurricular activities. You also have to abide by their honor code, which polices your personal life.
Okay, now that's just an outright stupid point, and I'll explain why. This video of his is about the hypocrisy of evangelical Christians, but their honor code is no different than the concept in which any particular institution, organization, or company would have. This is something which is a totally religiously neutral understood concept. It's called having standards to display a particular image an institution, organization, or company wants to reflect about themselves. It's not so much about controlling their personal life, but about consistently reflecting the desired image on and off those particular kind of entities. For example, if a company has policies against racism, an employee should not only reflect those standards at work, but probably should be reflecting that same mindset when they aren't working. That's just common sense. There are countless examples of people who have been fired from their jobs because they were captured on social media saying racist things. No rational person would claim somebody being fired for racism off the job equates to employers being about controlling people's personal lives. Sometimes what one does away from the institution, organization, or company contradicts the ethics of said entities in question, which can lead to consequences. For this dude to overlook this concept so that he might run on a flawed premise to make a fallacious argument is absolutely pathetic. Let's have a moment of silence for his stupidity. And thank you very much. And now we return to our regularly scheduled programming.
She didn't do that. She had sex with a guy who goes to a different school, and she got pregnant. And because this is a Christian academy, this is now everybody's business. They punished her by saying she couldn't attend graduation with the rest of her classmates. They'd mailed the diploma to her house.
I'm not sure about all the particulars of this case, because the fact is, none of us was there. But however, here's what I will say. If the facts are as follows, that this young woman messed up and she wanted to keep her child, and they said that she couldn't graduate with the rest of her class solely for that reason alone, if that is the proper representation of what was going on, then that's absolutely 100% wrong, and every single Christian should be holding that school accountable for that wrongful doing of theirs. So this is where he and I would actually agree.
And think about what that means. If Maddie had chosen to get an abortion, there's a good chance no one would have known about it except her, the guy, and, whoever else needed to know. And she would have walked across that stage just like everybody else. But because she chose to keep the baby, which is exactly what conservative Christians always want women to do, she was punished. I mean, what message does that send? They're totally against abortion, but if Maddie had one, everything would have been fine. They would have forgiven her and moved on.
No, that's not just saying that everything would have been fine. But the fact of the matter is that she would have kept it a secret and gotten an abortion, and then they would have found out after the fact, then that just means it would have been too late. They would have to forgive her, but it would be well past the point that they could do anything about it and carry out any disciplinary action. Again, I agree that they were 100% wrong to carry out disciplinary action. But that doesn't mean that they would have been okay with it if they would have found out too late. It's just the case that they would have just found out too late. But since they did know ahead of time, they carried out the action that they thought they were supposed to carry out, which I agree, that was 100% wrong. But it's not saying that they would have been fine about it. I just don't even know where he's even getting that crap from.
We know exactly why they punished her.
No, you don't, sir, because like I said, you don't know the whole story and none of us was there. We don't know that we even have all the facts. And as what we're talking about represents exactly how it happened. So you can't just sit up here and just say, you just emphatically know why they punished her. You don't know that, sir. So stop making ridiculous assumptions that you can't back up.
It's because she's literally pregnant right now, and everybody can see that. That's what the school was really afraid of. Their reputation.
Again, he simply doesn't know all the facts, and so he needs to quit speaking as if he does. All we can do is say that if, and only if, the reality represents what he's spoken about in this video so far, then if that school was really concerned about their reputation being a Christian school and all, then what they should have done is show the love, mercy, and grace of Jesus Christ in addressing her sin in that loving manner. They should have simply forgiven her and embraced her and let her know that although she sinned, a wonderful blessing still came out of it and that they'll be there for her. If they simply acted in hostility towards her because she sinned, then they absolutely did not do what Christ commanded and should be held accountable, as I said earlier.
Not abortion. Their scare tactics didn't work on her. And this is one of the biggest problems with Christian morality. Evangelicals are not more moral than everybody else, but they sure as hell want to act like it.
That is just an outright misrepresentation of Christianity. Rational Christians don't go around saying they are more moral than everybody else. In fact, rational Christians acknowledge that we are very depraved, and without Christ there is no hope, and we are in need of His perfection, His holiness, His love. We are in need of that man, that Savior, Jesus Christ. We are in need of Him, and only He is the perfect moral being. In fact, morality flows from His very nature. So He is the very paradigm of love, of goodness, of kindness, of grace. All the most amazing things you can imagine is entailed in His nature. We say that He is the moral paradigm, not us. So the straw man misrepresentations have got to stop, guy.
So they only really get mad when people sin in obvious ways. That's why being gay isn't necessarily a problem in many churches. But being in an open same-sex relationship, which people notice, is.
This is just more nonsense and stupidity. This has nothing to do with being so-called okay with sin because it's less obvious. No rational person would say they are okay with someone doing something messed up to their food because it's not done in an obvious fashion. Nobody in their rational mind is okay with a con artist because they are very subtle and not particularly easy to unmask. Again, this is just another religiously neutral concept. This way of thinking is applicable whether you think Christianity is rational or not. It just means that you cannot respond to what you don't know. That shouldn't be construed as a co-signing of a particular thing in question. An alcoholic might be able to be around others when they are sober, but it's quite another thing for them to show their addiction drinking in front of other people. That doesn't equate to being okay with alcoholism. You can love the alcoholic but hate what they do. It's just when Christians say, love the sinner, hate the sin, same thing.
That's why televangelists can scam people out of their money behind the scenes while acting pious in front of the camera. That's why pastors like Ted Haggard have to resign after their sex scandals get a lot of attention. But megachurch pastors who inflict abuse out of the spotlight stay in their positions for years.
He's just going to keep doubling down and tripling down on this nonsense, isn't he? He should know the vast majority of Christians cannot stand big church preachers and televangelists anyway. Wow. This is the same guy who claims to have been to tons of churches, but that's different than actually getting to know Christians who really truly understand their faith and actually live it. He needs to get to know Christians like that on a personal level and not simply reading everything he sees on TV and on the internet.
That's why evangelicals talk out loud about treating women as equals, but get furious when female Christian bloggers openly call them out on their bullshit.
There's no way this guy is serious right now. This has nothing to do with the Christians he's talking about. But again, it's a religiously neutral concept that if people are going to claim that they're doing something and other people call them out for not doing what they claim, then a lot of people are going to get mad. Not just these Christians he's speaking about. What in the world is this dude smoking?
And you know what's really crazy? Next year, Maddie will be attending Bob Jones University, the Christian school that banned interracial dating until the year 2000. In part, I assume, because they felt it was a slap in the face to God if the public saw a mixing of races.
Just like many atheists do, he confuses the concept of legitimately struggling in sin and apathetically living in it. A Christian can legitimately struggle with sin, but desire all the time for God to release them from that sin and be genuine in their hearts about it. Only God knows the hearts of each individual person, but it's quite another thing to deliberately be apathetic to the concept about mixing races and keeping that same mindset going for years and years and years until the year 2000. Anybody who perpetually, deliberately lives in a state of sin like that cannot call themselves Christians at all. Those people have to repent and have to be renewed by Jesus Christ and truly born again.
This isn't a controversy about abortion. This is a controversy over a student who's visibly pregnant, and her school is shaming her for it. It's appalling. But this is routine for the anti-abortion crowd. If they really cared about preventing abortions, they would celebrate her decision to keep the baby, even if it meant admitting that what she did with her boyfriend, what so many other high schoolers do, was wrong.
I don't know how many times I got to repeat this, but as I said before, if reality represents what he's been speaking about in this video, if the events unfolded in that way, then I agree with him 100%. But at the same time, it seems to me he makes no attempt to separate the Christians who are pro-life, who would do these sorts of things, from those who wouldn't. Either he believes all or most, at the very least, would do these sorts of things that he's been talking about. He's been running a pretty generalized argument so far, and the fact that he hasn't made any sort of effort to not generalize is very, very disappointing and irrational on his part.
They would do everything they can to make sure that baby is cared for and help Maddie make the transition into motherhood. Listen, I have a baby. I'm older than Maddie is. I'm done with school. I have all the resources in the world to take care of the baby, but it's still really, really hard. I promise you, she is gonna need some help. Not shame from her own community. I mean, at the very least, maybe they can start teaching real sex education at that school instead of abstinence-only nonsense.
I wonder if he even actually knows what they teach in regards to sex ed. Or is he just talking out his backside?
And by the way, just to add one more point to all this, one study in 2014 found that 13% of women who have abortions are evangelicals. And because that's a self-reported number, I don't know how accurate it is, but it is likely that some of the people who fight to shut down places like Planned Parenthood are among their patients. If you took all the women who have had abortions out of Christian schools and out of the churches, those places would be a whole lot emptier.
My friends, I'm confused to what the heck his point was behind making this video. Was it to suggest that evangelical Christians who are pro-life are hypocrites from time to time? And that may somehow impugn Christianity and or the pro-life message? I don't know what his point was, but if that was his point to a major or minor degree, that couldn't be further from the truth. Yes, because we are Christians, but because we are sinners and we in our fallen nature, we daily rely on Jesus Christ to keep us right, to straighten us out, to keep us coming back to the path he wants us to be on. Yes, we're going to be hypocrites from time to time, but that's why we need Jesus so much. That's what Christianity is about, is continually pursuing Christ over and over again, because he desires us to be like him. He desires for us to come to him and love him and walk with him. That has nothing to do with any flaw of Christianity itself. And those who walk in line with the true message of what Christianity is talking about, the true example of Jesus Christ, will naturally be pro-life in the way Jesus would intend a pro-lifer to be. So I'm not exactly sure what the heck his point was, but whatever it was, he did a colossal job making it. It was just a total fail video, and it was just bad, my friends, and I'll just leave it here. So with that said, as always, thanks you guys for watching. Please comment, like, share, and subscribe, and I always continue to support. So with that said, I'm out. Take care, God bless, and peace.